Hey, it's 12:05 right here on Helping Seniors of Brevard for this Wednesday. As we get the show underway, always a delight to introduce the Executive Director of Helping Seniors of Brevard and the host of our show. Here is Kerry Fink. Hi, Kerry. How are you today?
I'm good, John Harper. How are you doing today?
Just wonderful, thanks.
And we've got so much to talk about today. I'm excited about a segment we have coming up actually in the second half of the show where we're going to be talking, because this is actually a date on the calendar. It's, it's the day, I think if I have it correctly, that annual enrollment period for your Medicare plan for 2023 kind of comes into focus. This is the day,
it's finally here.
Right. And so you had the privilege, we're going to have Vicki Moore, who is a licensed independent Medicare insurance. She's a real expert on this, and she actually serves on our volunteer board of directors for Helping Seniors, and I'm glad we're going to be able to talk with her in this show about that. So that's a segment you don't want to miss, because she's a real go-to authority, I think. I've sent a lot of people in her direction because I've seen her really go out of her way to make sure that, as an independent person, she just wants to help the person, right? She's not necessarily bound to a particular company.
That's right.
So she can look at all the different options of things like that. So you want to be sure you stay around for that. And you definitely want to stay around right now, because I'm going to introduce our guest for today. He is board certified elder law attorney, Bill Johnson. How are you?
I'm doing great, Kerry. How are you?
I'm good. And so Bill and I were talking earlier this week, and we said, kind of with an eye toward that since everybody's kind of got this focus on Medicare and this deadline of December 7th and all these different kind of things, that we might want to talk a little bit about how this impacts from an elder law viewpoint too, because I was thinking, Bill, and we were talking just before the show, I said, as a typical person, and I remember getting into this as our moms were getting older, I think we walk around with this idea that I don't really have to plan so much, because if something happens to mom or whatever, Medicare will pay for the nursing home, and I don't really have to worry about it. Until we got into that situation, and then we found out it will pay, but just a little bit, and only for 100 days at the most, Bill.
Yeah, you really need to know what Medicare pays for, what it does not, what your copays are, what your max out-of-pocket is, and then you need to know the same for any Medicare Advantage plan, and then you have to figure whether or not you're going to need a Medigap plan or a prescription drug plan. There's a lot of moving parts in all of this.
I was thinking as we were kind of spitballing this before the show, I said, for most of us, a lot of this stuff gets in. I remember having this conversation with Vicki Moore. We actually did a TV show that we ended up titling it, calling it The Alphabet of Medicare, because, you think we're bad down here about NASA acronyms and things like that, but it's pretty complicated when you get into all this.
That's probably where we should start, actually.
Yeah,
because,
all right.
So if you've worked 40 quarters, 10 years, you vested in the program, and when you turn 65, and for some people, it's even later, because they've changed that now. I think I'm 67 before I get it.
Wow.
But you get basically Medicare Part A, which is your hospitalization coverage. Then there is Medicare Part B, which you're eligible for, and you have to pay a premium for that.
Now, that's the part they actually take out. They send you, say, well, here's what we're giving you for Social Security, but then we're going to take this out because it's paying that part, right?
Correct. And that goes up each year. And also, if you don't get Part B immediately and you get it later on, 10 years after you retired, the premium can be significantly higher.
Yeah, because there's like penalties, right, if you don't sign up.
Correct. Because they want all the money going into the pool.
Right.
So there are penalties. Why would you not sign up immediately? Well, say you were still working and you were covered by employer insurance, and subsequently you didn't need Part B because you had this other coverage there. And you delay, and then when you finally retire and get done working, all of a sudden you find out that your Part B coverage is through the roof because you didn't sign up initially when you became eligible for Medicare.
Wow.
And then, even with those two, there are copays. Okay, and out-of-pocket expenses, and that's where Medigap insurance comes in. And they have a variety of plans that pay for those copays. There are a couple plans that cover everything, but as of a few years ago, they don't sell those anymore.
Yeah.
They quit selling plans F, and I can't remember what the other one is, but they're not numbered, but they're lettered. The plans are. So you can have a Medigap policy that will help cover the things that A and B don't pay. And then also you can have Medicare Part D, which is your prescription drug coverage.
Right.
And that would pick up your prescription drug costs. Now, there is such a thing as Medicare C. So we've talked about A, B, and D, and Medigap, but we haven't talked about C. And we don't call it C anymore. We call it Advantage Plan.
Yeah, I call it where you get all the stuff in your mailbox, Bill.
Exactly. Yeah, you get close to that age, and all of a sudden you get inundated. And what an Advantage Plan is a combination of A and B.
Right.
Okay. They have to offer the same services that A and B do. And a lot of times it includes D, a prescription drug coverage, but it can include extras. It can include dental. It could include ocular. It could include a gym membership, I've seen now. I saw one the other day on TV that gives you $25 a month for groceries.
Right.
There's a grocery allowance. So that there are a lot of other perks that these plans are putting in there to sell. So you have A and B, then you can cover what A and B don't cover with Medigap. There's Part D, which covers your prescription drugs. And then if you don't like any of that, you can do an Advantage Plan, which is A, B, and D usually. And but it'll have its own copays and out-of-pocket costs.
Much like we have talked about all this year, our theme at Helping Seniors, and let me take a minute to actually back up one step and just say, for those of you who listen to us regularly, thank you for coming back and joining us every Wednesday here on 90.3 FM WEJF. Hello to those who are listening online at WEJF.net, and those of you who hear this later as a podcast, everywhere podcasts are found, from iHeartRadio to iTunes to hey Alexa, let me hear Helping Seniors. It's all there. But we made our theme for this year as a nonprofit. Joe Steckler, our president and founder, got this thing rolling. We're now in our 12th year of service here in Brevard County. And his whole idea was to educate, inform, and connect seniors to the resources that we're going to need along the way. And his goal was to do two things. So for 12 years, we've had this senior information helpline, which Nancy Deerdorf, our operations director, manages at 321-473-7770. I'll say that number again while you grab a pencil. It's area code 321-473-7770. And that's a place where people call in and they're asking for help. They say, I've run into this situation, I need help. But the real thing that we hope we can do, we took 881 calls, by the way, last month, Bill. So the call volume is like through the roof because we have more seniors than ever. More people are moving to Florida. And let's be honest, there's a lot of challenges right out there right now with the affordable housing side of it. So we're getting all these calls in, but we kind of call that typically reactive because most of the calls, people are in trouble and we're trying to help them find a solution to the problem they're in. The flip side, though, is that there are so many seniors in Brevard County. 1 in 4 is over 65. 1 in 2, by AARP definition, is a senior here in Brevard because that means you're over 50. And so the other half of what we try to do as Helping Seniors is get people to get ahead of this curve. And much like we understand a hurricane plan in Florida, we want you to have an aging plan or a way, we call it getting your ducks in a row, that helps you to think about things that you might run into. And so, Bill, to bring this back to where we were talking about, one of the things I wanted to mention is that was our theme for 2022, as we call it. We want to help you get your ducks in a row, and that's going to be an ongoing theme. But we're going to add for 2023 this idea of don't try this on your own. And Bill, much like when we talk to you on a strictly elder law kind of basis, and you talk about the documents we should have, the planning that we should do so that things move smoothly if we're not able to make decisions or as we leave the earth, that we have the plans in place so it goes the way we want to do it. And so we've talked a lot about don't try this on your own. I mean, it's easy to go online and maybe look something up, but you can get in real big trouble real quick, as we've talked about many times, because when you need a document to work right in a legal situation, it's a bad time to find out that the form you downloaded is not the right form. But the same thing, just like what we're talking about now, when we get into the complexity of Medicare, it's the same thing. You don't want to try this on your own because you'd have to go to school to learn all this alphabet soup of Medicare.
Well, the good news is there are people out there who know the alphabet soup and can steer you. One of them is a free service located through Aging Matters here in Brevard, the Shine, serving the health insurance needs of elders.
Yeah.
And the acronym is SHINE. And if you call them up, Aging Matters, they can put you in touch with the SHINE program people. And they can compare, mix and match programs for you. Also, we have people like the lady who's calling in.
Right. I was going to say the other half of it is as a nonprofit, we have the benefit of being supported by a number of businesses who are committed to good care for seniors. And so actually within the Helping Seniors wheelhouse of sponsors, Care Plus has been with us directly for like 3, 4, 5 years now. And Care Plus is a 5-star rated. They're one of those what you call Medicare Advantage plans that helps be that Part C solution. But we also have actually 3 different agents who are part of the Helping Seniors Network that Nancy will refer people to. Vicki Moore is an expert. There's also a lady named Marissa Mitchell who is part of the Helping Seniors Network, and a gentleman named Jerry Hadlock. And all these people, there's a thing that happens in common, Bill, when you sit down and you talk to them. These people are specialists, like you know everything there is to know about elder law. You've seen it. You can help people avoid huge problems because this isn't your first rodeo. You've done this for decades. Well, that's kind of the way it is with these guys. And the interesting thing is because each of those people that I just named, they're all independent. So what they like to do, and when you talk with each one of them individually, they really love and relish the opportunity to sit down with somebody and they'll say, bring me the prescriptions you get. Tell me about how you go to the doctor, how often you go to the doctor, which kind of doctors you see. And let's make sure that a plan that you take is a plan that's really going to benefit you. And Bill, I know you and I have talked so many times on the radio about the hazards of people. They see a commercial on TV and they say, I'm going to go to this legal spot there's a website, I can just download the forms. They say it's good for my state and I'll be good to go. And how many times, Bill, have you had to sort out expensively messes that happen because of simple goofs?
Correct. And with any insurance, you really have to know what it covers, what it doesn't, and how much is this going to be out of my pocket. The other thing you really got to pay attention to is, am I going to be able to see my doctor?
Right.
That's another big one with insurance, especially health insurances, is can I go to whoever I want to go to?
Yeah.
So, the general rule when you're looking at these different policies and whether or not to go Medicare or Medicare Advantage. Well, one of the big benefits of doing an Advantage plan is it may not cost you anything out of your pocket.
Right.
That deductible that we were talking about for Medicare Part B that comes out of your Social Security check, when you sign up for an Advantage plan, that deductible is either greatly reduced or reduced all the way to zero.
Yeah.
But that is to entice you to sign up for the plan. Now, you have to remember when you sign up for the plan, you may be getting a lot of other bells and whistles, but you also may be losing some things. And generally, one of the things you lose is the right to go to the physician of your choice.
Yeah. It seems like there's so many points to it. And what I was going to try to do is draw an analogy from how we've talked about in the elder law field. You know, you see these commercials, they make it seem real simple, and you go try to download a document or do your own paperwork and all that. But if it doesn't do what you intended to do, it becomes very expensive paperwork. And I've seen you have to really struggle to help families that may have thought they were doing the right thing out of that jam. But I've seen the same thing when I talk to these independent Medicare experts who are, who we're really connected with, and we have a lot of conversations with about this. And I hear them say the same thing a little bit with horror. They talk about the people who call them after watching one of those commercials, maybe on a news channel, and it's some famous person that you thought was really great in a TV show, and they say, you got to call us because we have an 800 number and we can get you money in your pocket and get you set up for your Medicare plan. And so that all sounds great, but you end up calling a call center in, let's just say, Omaha, and they're going to tell you where your doctors are, and you might be living in Palm Bay and say, oh, there's a great doctor. He's right up there in Titusville. That's not going to work. You need somebody, just like we've talked about so many times, Bill, you got to have an expert Florida elder law attorney to help you make sure you're on track with that. But you really need an expert Florida Medicare expert who knows this area to help you navigate stuff,
So the general rule of thumb that I was trying to tell is, to get back to that, was if you're really sick, you probably want to stay on Medicare, A and B, and with a D plan and a Medigap. Because it's accepted everywhere.
Right.
And you get your choice of physicians, and you have those things. Now, if you're a healthy senior, you don't have much in the way of medical problems, then an Advantage plan looks pretty appealing. It's cheaper. You get some additional benefits like gym benefit, ocular, dental, those kinds of things. And if you're not so concerned about being locked into certain plan doctors, then that may be the route to go for you. Now, there are certain rights you also give up. If you don't like a decision Medicare makes, you can appeal that, but you appeal directly to Medicare. If you don't like a decision that an Advantage plan makes, you have to appeal first to the Advantage plan.
Wow.
So you go to their board. Then you can, climb the ladder from there, but generally people don't have a ton of time to appeal medical denials because they're looking for care now.
Right, and then you don't know even necessarily how to do all the correct appeal process. Boy, what a nightmare that can be.
Correct, and you don't know what your rights are. You don't know what the law says you're right, how you can do that. Just for an example, we were talking about nursing homes. Under a straight Medicare Part B, you get 20 days if you have a 3 midnight hospital stay, and you go into the nursing home for the same condition you went into the hospital for. If you go in the nursing home, participate in rehab, under Medicare Part D, days 1 through 20 are 100 covered, and then days 21 through 100, there's a copay. It's like $175 a day. And then after 100 days, there is no coverage.
Yeah.
Now, under one of the Advantage plans that is local, they give you the 20 days, but if you go beyond that, they try to kick you out of there as fast as they can.
Wow.
Because they don't want to pay for any more rehab for you. And so subsequently, whereas under Medicare Part B, this 100 days would not be an issue. Now all of a sudden you're fighting them to get the rehab that you need because they're telling the nursing home to kick you out because they're not going to pay anymore. And of course you can appeal that, but where are you going to be while you wait for that whole appeal to work through the process?
Yeah, it's really complicated because, again, that comes back to this whole thing of don't try this on your own, because you really need somebody who is well-versed at all that fine print. Again, I keep making the analogy, Bill, is why people need to call you to get the help that they need about getting their paperwork right, rather than trying to, talk to some friend at church, God forbid, pull a business card of some person who says, I can help you do this off of a bulletin board at a grocery store or something like that. Or, Google, if it's on the internet, it must be true. All those things. The same reason it makes sense to call a board certified elder law attorney to get help with this stuff is the same reason you want to talk to a licensed, independent Medicare insurance expert. Because, for example, when I was talking with them, they talk about the schooling that they have to go through all summer long because, it changes every year. So even if you thought, well, I'm all set this year, it worked great. By the time you get to next year, stuff has changed in your drug plan and all of that.
Oh, totally. Totally. And they have to stay on top of all that. Yes.
Right. Just like you, I know in the legal world, you guys have to do a certain amount of continuing education because, again, I know you stay on top. In fact, you tell us what's happening with the elder laws and things like that as they're changing. But it changes all the time.
Yeah. And one note on that is, for a Medicare Part D plan or even an Advantage plan, if it's got a drug coverage, you got to make sure it covers your drugs.
Otherwise, what good does it do?
Yes.
So we're talking with Bill Johnson, elder law attorney, board certified elder law attorney with the law firm of William A. Johnson, PA. And Bill, if somebody should, this is a good moment, you should be taking care of your paperwork. How do they reach your office?
They can call us at 321-253-1667.
Okay, good. And we're going to be back on the second half of the show, and we have a special guest, Vicki Moore, who's going to talk a little bit more about what we've been talking about on the Helping Seniors radio program. Real quick, before we get to mid-show break, I wanted to remind you that we have a date. The date is October 7th, 2023. So go ahead and put that one on your calendar. We're going to talk more about it as we get through the mid-show break, but that is going to be the 7th annual Helping Seniors Car Raffle fundraiser. So you can go ahead, block your calendar, make the rest of October work around that date is what I would say. So we'll be back with more Helping Seniors.
John Harper with you on this Wednesday here on Helping Seniors of Brevard. And Vicki Moore is with us, a familiar name. She's been with us many times, especially during the enrollment period for Medicare, Medicaid. And Vicki, today is the last day up to midnight tonight that someone can sign up for the Medicare, Medicaid programs, the many programs that exist. But at the same time, there is a possibility that someone may be able to qualify for a special enrollment period. Can you elaborate a little bit on that, Vicki?
Sure, John. Yes. So you are exactly right. Today is the last day, December 7th. So as long as you talk to your agent and make a change by midnight today, then you can definitely get going and start your new plan by January 1st. But if you have missed that period and you've not decided or something comes up, there is definitely the possibility that you may qualify for a special enrollment period. So, my recommendation is talk to an agent. If somehow, you just didn't get the opportunity due to different reasons to talk to an agent and, decide on look at other options, then talk to an agent and see if you may possibly qualify for a special enrollment period. And there are some of those out there. So definitely, check into that if you feel like you've missed out for some reason.
Well, it's always good, Vicki, to have options, and it sounds like if someone is up against the deadline today or tonight by midnight and they have not been able to sign up with anyone yet, now is the opportunity and the time to do that. So what's the best way, Vicki Moore? You're an independent agent. You can get an individual in touch with many different companies that exist out there. We're being barraged by the number of different companies on radio and television, newspapers, magazines. But at the same time, it's good to be able to deal with someone that you can trust. And we certainly trust you, Vicki Moore. You've done a great job this season for the enrollment period. How can someone get in touch with you now?
Well, John, they can give me a call at 321-272-0218. And I will tell you, I know this decision, it can be difficult for some people. I'm getting calls, every day, right up until today as the last day. And people are like, I'm not sure if I've made the right decision. And so it's a really hard decision. But there is time to make changes if you feel like you need to. But of course, give me a call, and I'm certainly happy to help if I can.
All right, Vicki Moore, the clock is ticking up through midnight tonight to enroll and or make changes, but you need to get in touch with Vicki Moore to make that happen. Again, her phone number 321-272-0218. 321-272-0218. Or you can contact Vicki via email at Victoria. I'll tell you what, Vicki, give us your email.
Yes, it's Victoria M at medtigtig.com.
Excellent. Vicki Moore, thanks so much for being with us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye, John.
And we thank Vicki Moore for being with us right here on Helping Seniors of Brevard. Very relevant information on this last day of enrollment, Kerry Fink. So I think Vicki has done a great job getting out information to our listeners, and hopefully they will adhere to some of her advice, and they still have until midnight to follow up on it.
Yeah, and I know that this is it's like a busy day for all of those people who are in this industry, because they want to make sure they get everybody into the right plan. And Vicki is a great resource for that. And I've seen personally her help a lot of different people who are really struggling financially find the best option through it. And so as we continue with the second half of the Helping Seniors radio show today on 90.3 FM, WEJF, in the studio with us here, we have none other than longtime friend of the Helping Seniors Network. He goes all the way back. And he goes all the way back because he's such an expert at elder law. He's board certified elder law attorney Bill Johnson with William A. Johnson. Welcome back, Bill.
Oh, thank you, Kerry.
And we were talking a little bit over the mid-show break that, I guess you can also, even though today is like the official end of the annual enrollment period, one of the things is that, and I'm not an expert in this, but there is an opportunity if you become disenchanted, like maybe you picked this thing and then you realized as soon as you got into it, wow, this is not really what I thought I was getting. So I think there's some sort of a special thing that happens in the early part of the next year, but also people call you because they're gonna, as an elder law attorney, because they're like not satisfied and they got to disenroll or something.
Well, let's talk about that. You're not glued in to a particular. It's not a lifetime commitment. Put it that way.
Okay.
So if you get into an Advantage plan and later you don't like it, the open enrollment period will come around next year, and you can change your plan.
Right.
You're free to change at any time. Let's say you had Medicare and a Medigap policy, and you were going to test the waters, and you decided instead I'm going to go into an Advantage plan. If you do that for 12 months and you don't like it, you can still come back out into Medicare with Medigap. Okay? You can get back into Medigap insurance. If you go beyond the 12 months, you're not guaranteed you're going to be able to get into Medigap insurance.
Oh, wow.
Which can make a huge difference. Medigap insurance is not one where pre-existing conditions are accepted. So they do, if you go beyond that 12 months, they can deny you coverage. They can say, we're not going to take you, which would leave you just with Medicare A and B. So
Kerry, for you and Bill, do you have to go through an underwriter to make those changes, or how does that occur?
Well, you go through well, what would happen is you just sign up for the new plan, and that would replace the old plan. But it would be through an agent who's selling that. Also, the agents sell the Medigap insurance as well. It's standardized, those letters I was talking about, that if the federal government standardized each of those plans so that we're comparing apples with apples and oranges with oranges when we look at the pricing of those things. So that is something you got to really pay close attention to.
Yeah.
Also, the Medigap insurance, when you first sign up for Medicare A and B, you have this window where they have to accept you 6 months.
Okay.
Okay. After you pass that, they don't have to accept you either.
Wow.
And so when we were talking about, holding off on getting Part B to, you retire from the company and not covered, well, you may be waiving your right to get Medigap insurance as well.
Wow.
Because you may be past the period where they have to cover you. Now, sometimes I do, as you know, a lot of Medicaid work. So I help families get loved ones in nursing homes on Medicaid to cover the costs of long-term care. And sometimes we get people who say, hey, my loved one was at the nursing home getting rehab. 20 days has passed. The Advantage plan says they're not paying anymore, but my loved one still needs more rehab. And they come to us to get on Medicaid.
Right.
Now, if the nursing home's really good, they will tell the person, do you know you can get out of your Advantage plan? And simply you do that by calling the Advantage plan, telling them that this has created a financial hardship, and they will re-enroll you right back into Medicare Part B, usually within like 24 hours.
Wow.
And then the coverage under that usually covers the rehab for a longer period of time, which is then when I do my magic and get them on the Medicaid to cover even a longer period.
Wow.
So if your Advantage plan creates a financial hardship, you can disenroll. You don't have to wait till the open enrollment period, and they will re-enroll you back into Medicare Part B.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was asking you as your experience as an elder law attorney, but a board certified elder law attorney, and that I said, you see families come in. Maybe they came in because they're afraid that that their plan told them, said, well, no, mom, dad doesn't qualify for extra help. So then they come into your office and say, wow, I've got to do something. Now, what can I do? And then as you talk to them, it may be an appeal or maybe starting the medic. I mean, that's an area that you help people with.
Correct, including my own family.
Yeah.
My stepfather came to me and said, I've had this diagnosis of throat cancer. I would really like to go to Mayo Clinic, but my Advantage plan says that it's out of area and they will not cover it.
Wow.
And won't cover any of the testing up there. What do I do? And I said, well, you call them up, tell them it's created a financial hardship. They'll re-enroll you in Medicare Part B. The Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville takes Medicare Part B.
Wow. Wow.
And we solved that within 24 hours.
Wow. So, and then a lot of times too, I guess that's, we talk about this. We started the show talking a little bit about this, that many of us are under the impression that Medicare is going to help us with a nursing home. But as you pointed out in the first half of the show, it's for a limited period and for under certain specific conditions.
Mainly rehab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as we discover, maybe now something has shifted, and now it's going to be a much longer road to try to work through whatever the situation is. And this is an area that you, as an elder law firm, you're able to help people, because sometimes then that's when the Medicaid part has to be brought into it, right?
Correct. The max benefit under Medicare Part B is 100 days, 100% of days 1 through 20, and then there's a copay days 20 through 100. I have clients that literally need to be in rehab for 6 months.
Yeah.
And Medicare is not going to pay for that. So that's a lot of times when we have to get them onto Medicaid to cover that longer stay at the nursing home and get them that extended rehab.
Yeah, and this kind of goes back to the don't try this on your own thing, right? Because the problem is, here you are, let's say you're an adult son or daughter of mom or dad or uncle or whoever it is that we're trying to help, who's now in this situation, or maybe you're the spouse of somebody who's in this situation, and you're busy running back and forth to the facility to visit, make sure they're okay, all that kind of stuff, and then you're trying to sort through all this appeal process. What do I do next kind of process? I don't even know. They're sending me this form. They're telling me this, and I don't even know what my rights are. I guess you get a lot of people who show up in your office just like, help, what do I do next?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And looking, well, how do I navigate this?
Yeah.
And we do a lot of that.
So,
and again, we do it mainly from, you tell us what the healthcare need is, and then we will, match you to the government benefit that can help defray the costs of that.
Right.
I don't get into diagnosing people and
right.
telling them what kind of health care to get to. They have to tell me what the doctor said and where they're going to go.
Yeah, but I want to stop down and say this is really emphasizing the point that as Helping Seniors of Brevard as a nonprofit, we're always trying to make, is that Joe, for years, has talked about you got to make an aging plan. And we've talked so many radio shows and TV shows over the years, Bill, where we've said, like, why are we reticent to sit down and do our planning?
Well, you've heard me say this like a broken record on this show, but Money Magazine had that survey of people who were retiring, and they said, what are your biggest money concerns? And number one was outliving their money. Number two was maintaining the lifestyle they had prior to retirement. And somewhere down around 20 was a long-term care event.
Wow.
Nobody's thinking about these things until it happens.
Yeah, and then the problem is you're in the middle of a high-stress environment. Your options are severely limited because you weren't able to get ahead of the curve. And that's why Joe is so adamant about, Kerry, we've got to teach people to get ahead of this. And that's why, so much of what we do with Helping Seniors is committed to education. You take time out of your very busy schedule to come and share with us on the radio. You've done the TV shows. You produce articles that we can incorporate into our Helping Seniors news, because you're trying to get people to get this through their thinking that it's a whole lot better if we can be in front of it than having to try to chase to catch up. And
well, it's the same as the telephone answering service that Helping Seniors does.
Yeah.
Is that people need to get the education. They need the information.
Yeah.
And whether it's the radio shows, seminars, or answering the phone.
Yeah.
It's trying to get the right information to the people who need it.
Yeah, and I was thinking that's why the corollary for 2023 is don't try this on your own, because I was thinking, okay, so you went to this legal.com thing and I downloaded all these forms and I'm so smart. And then you run into a situation like this, which is incredibly confusing, and you don't even know which leg to stand on. Try calling your legal.com, because they, number one, do they know Florida? Number two, do they know what's going on in this area? And that's why, because I keep thinking about this, is like all this expert help is available right here locally, and it's very, very inexpensive compared to the kind of the situations that you're facing if you don't get the right help.
Correct. It can be monumental, the amount of money. I mean, a nursing home alone is about $13,000 a month now in Brevard. So you goof this up and you're on the hook for 1 month at least.
We've had these conversations because, I'm just going to deed the house over to my kid because I'm going to go to a nursing home. And all of a sudden, then you have to sit down with a family and explain, like, that's a gift. Look back, and all these things that most of us don't even know that we thought we were doing a good thing, and then we found out it was like a horrific thing.
Yeah, there's a ton of uneducated self-help that goes on.
Wow. So the correct way for somebody to think about these things, I guess, I keep going, information is golden. And Nancy Deerdorf, who's our operations director, she has a saying that she likes to use, is you don't know what you don't know. And in this case, what you don't know can really, really be harmful to you. And so by taking advantage of getting ahead of all this stuff and just getting your planning and getting organized, all this stuff kind of works together. And that's why Joe keeps talking about the aging plan.
Well, let me flip the script on you, Kerry.
Yeah.
So after we get done with this radio show, where can people find this information?
So what we always tell people is, number one, the Helping Seniors info line is a great resource, 321-473-7770. Another great resource is all the published materials that we've done over the years. Bill, you've done by yourself, first with Joe, and then we've done a bunch together, the TV shows, the radio shows, the articles. And then I know we're always referring people saying, like, okay, if you go to floridaelderlaw.net, which is your website, Bill Johnson, elder law attorney, you take the time to publish a book. Well, I call it a book, but you call it a information guide, whatever you want to call it, that has all this information that we need to know as we're getting older. But even that is like a primer to get you set up to say, well, let's just give Bill's office a ring and say, here's my situation. What do I do?
Well, where I was going is all the information we've talked about today will be available on the internet.
Absolutely. HelpingSeniorsOfBrevard.org. We keep everything there. You can go back and, Bill, you've done shows on guardianship. You've done shows on what the areas of practice an elder law attorney is effective in. You've done shows about the most core documents that you want to be sure. You just go in there and you type Bill Johnson in the search bar. You get all that. You can also find us on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook. Just look for Helping Seniors of Brevard. All that material is there, and that's a great place to start. But you have a lot on your website too, because you have that. What is that guide called? You can go right there and download it, right?
The Florida Long-Term Care and Nursing Home Answer Book.
And ever since I've known you, you've been making that available as a resource for seniors, and you take the time then to update it every year. Like I know you publish it in the center of people get their Boomer Guide every year. It's a good resource that's got lots of great phone numbers and places to go for help. But you make sure it's in there every year so that people can and their families can really kind of get a jump on the things, because we just don't know this stuff, Bill.
Right. And, getting that information out is key. And, having, if you're looking at next year, what should I look for in the plan? You can simply go to the Helping Seniors of Brevard website, find this radio show, go through what we were talking about, the pluses and the minuses of these plans.
Absolutely.
And be sure to ask the right question.
Yeah, and that's really the battle. That's really the battle cry. Is like, number one, let's make a plan. Number two is don't try this on your own, because you have the benefit of the wisdom. Like, the problem is, we've talked about this a lot. Helping Seniors, we're 100% local charity. We exist here to help people in Brevard. Doesn't mean Nancy she'll get calls from people on the west coast of Florida, and she'll get people calling from the west coast of the USA every once in a while, because you do a global search and, everything comes up. So she's helped people who are like out of state and things like that. But our real expertise is knowing who's here in our county. And that's what I say, if you call out or you're trying to do something, online, or you're trying to call an 800 number because you saw an ad on TV, you're talking to somebody who's in Iowa who doesn't, it's not that they don't want to be helpful, but they don't understand beachside versus main, they don't understand Cocoa Beach versus Palm Bay. They just say, oh, you're in Brevard County. That's easy enough. And you must see that all the time as people come in, especially as people move in from other states.
That's exactly true. And a lot of these things are very state-specific rules.
Yes.
Even though there may be a federal program like Medicaid, but how it's interpreted is up to the states. And the rules may get very state specific.
I'm glad you mentioned that point because I was thinking about a situation literally in our own family. My wife has an aunt who lives up in Georgia, and so she's on a Medicare plan up there. But I remember having a conversation down here saying, like, she's a person who really kind of makes it work on her barely on her Social Security check, and that's really about all she's got. And so for her, she's got to be very careful how she works all these things. And it became fairly clear pretty quickly that in Florida, we have some much more favorable Medicare rules than seem to apply like in the state of Georgia. And so fortunately, the person that we were asking help with is licensed now in the state of Georgia and can kind of help navigate that. But the challenge that we discovered was it isn't the same state to state.
Correct.
So I guess you see that people will move in like, oh, we just got here from New York State, we're going to be here full time. Or I guess the other thing is you have a lot of snowbirds who say, well, we have our place up in Michigan and then we come down here for the winters, and all those things create certain things you want to think about, both in terms of legal planning, but also in terms of even like the basic premise of what we set out to talk about today, which is Medicare. How do you make the right choice?
And even down to income taxes.
Yeah.
Florida doesn't have an income tax, and most of those states up north do.
And not only that, too, right? Because we've talked about this a lot. There's a lot of protections that happen with homestead down here that you may not necessarily get in another state either.
Yeah, most states don't have a homestead law as strong as Florida's.
Yeah. And so all these things, the funny thing is it's not like somebody calls you up to tell you these things. You've got to be a little bit proactive and try to get to the bottom of this. And that's why getting a copy of your aging guide is really a good place to start. And that's elderlaw.net, right? That's
correct.
And you can just click there and download it. But if you're not like a computer person, it's not your thing, they can also maybe give you a call in your office and you guys can get them one or something like that.
We can, if they just call us at 321-253-1667.
Yeah, we're talking with board-certified elder law attorney Bill Johnson. We've been talking a lot about Medicare because today is the end of at least the 2022 season for the annual enrollment period. But there are options, and so any one of the Medicare licensed independent agents that are connected with helping seniors, and you can get those. You can get those referrals. Just give Nancy Deerdorf, our operations director, a call on our senior information helpline, 321-473-7770. And she'll get you connected. And just like Bill was talking about, too, lots of good resources. You can go look up the TV shows that we've done because they're really, I think they're great primers. Everybody's situation. This is also, you do a lot of like seminars and help get families kind of acclimated to the general things, right? You do those.
I do those over at One Senior Place.
Right. So people can also, if they call the office, they can get a list of when these things are coming up, or maybe they're on the website. But you spend a lot of time just trying to educate people so they know about the general things. But then usually everybody's situation is a little bit specific, like I need this medication, or here's what's going on with my health condition, or here's what's going on in my family. And that's really why they need to sit down with an expert where they can feel comfortable about sharing where they are so that you can help them navigate the best course in that given situation.
Correct. And also I don't sell insurance. So,
No.
If you ask me in questions about coverage and things like that, I can talk to you objectively because I'm not an agent of any companies.
It's funny you mentioned that too, because you and I have had the conversation about somebody who said, oh, I had my real estate attorney who I've known for all these years. I had him do my estate planning documents, but they're not experts in it. I said, it's kind of like going to a podiatrist for a cardiologist kind of question. They're both excellent medical professionals, but you got to have the right one for what it is you're trying to do, right? And so getting somebody who knows elder law to help on all these areas is the right thing, but getting somebody who really understands, let's look at your situation. Because I've heard them, they all say, like, I've got a calculator, you give me your drug list, I'll go through and I'll figure out, we'll know about things like donut hole. We can find the best solution for your particular situation.
And very true. Very
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
So again, Bill Johnson, elder law attorney, board certified elder law attorney, one of the great partners in the helping seniors world. Like I said, you've helped us with this since the day Joe started this, and going back before when Joe was building Joe's Clubs for Brevard Alzheimer's. So one more time, if they want to give a call, maybe they want to find out more information about a particular circumstance that they're facing. Maybe they want to find about your where your seminars are. What's the number?
321-253-1667.
All right. Thanks, Bill. And we will see you guys next week right here, Wednesday, 12 noon, for Helping Seniors Radio. Till then, have a great week.